And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and the Hagmann Report for today, Wednesday, September 26, 2012. I'm Doug Hagmann. I'm the senior co-host of the Hagmann and the Hagmann Report. With me to my right is Joe Hagmann. He's my son, and you are about to hear 2 hours of unbiased and uncensored news and analysis. This is information we are bringing to you unavailable elsewhere. And you know something? This is information that you need to know in these perilous times. We broadcast live each and every night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And starting on Monday, we're going to be going to a 3-hour program format from 8 to 11, folks. And it's because of your support, your generous support, which we thank you just from the bottom of our hearts that we're able to do this. We are also broadcasting and will be also broadcasting live in high definition. If you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, that's our website. But if you go to the Christians United Broadcasting Network, it's Homeland Security US, the number one .tk. That's a live broadcast during showtimes only. But then the Christians United Broadcasting Network also archives the video as well.
Yeah.
So in high def.
And also, if you want to check out our shows via archives, you can use iTunes, or we have been putting our episodes with guests. This week, Ann Barnhart and Greg Evenson. Both of those shows are archived and up. There's a videos up on YouTube at our channel, Team K9, TEAMKNEIN.
And also, we have all of our previous broadcasts as well since we went independent on our HomelandSecurityUS.com. Go to recent broadcasts, and you'll find our broadcasts there. Now, tonight we have a very, very special guest. Mr. Stan Deyo is with us. Folks, I don't think Stan Deyo needs an introduction at all. He's been he's a tremendous guy. He's one heck of a scientist, if you will. And scientist probably doesn't even begin to cover what he's done and what he actually is. He's going to be joining us here shortly.
Yeah, we're trying to get him on. And Stan, if you can hear us, we are trying to add you to this conversation via Skype.
We are.
And we are calling right now.
Okay. Now, folks, I got to tell you, StanDeyo.com. That's D-E-Y-O, StanDeyo.com. That's his website. If you want to really find out what's going on in the community in terms of the scientific community, go there. Holly Dale, what a great woman. She's written numerous books, Dare to Prepare. Numerous incarnations of that book. Her latest revision, Dare to Prepare, it is like an encyclopedia. I'm going to tell you something. We have copies here, and it's such a great reference book. It just wipes everybody else's out. That is the gold standard for preparation. And Stan, of course, has written the book, The Cosmic Conspiracy. That book will knock your socks off. I guarantee it. And folks, StanDeyo.com. Go ahead and visit their website. Order both of them. You can't go wrong. I'm telling you. Now, while we're attempting to get Stan on, I don't know, folks, have you been watching the various riots, the uprisings in Spain and other countries? Holy cow!
Yeah, we have riots in Greece. We have clashes with police. And as protesters hurl Molotov cocktails at police officers in Spain, we have protests raging as they continue to have austerity measures. And let me pull up here what I read earlier. They're erupting as the bank warns of a deep recession, over 25% unemployment in Spain.
And we have the same here.
Yeah.
And see, that's the thing. Go ahead and take your time and get him see if we can get him back on, or see if we can get Stan on. But look, this is kind of like the canary in the coal mine. in terms of the economic aspect of things, Europe is the canary in the coal mine. What we're seeing in Europe right now, it's due to, as you said, Joe, the austerity measures, or it's due to the measures that the problems that we have with respect to the grand theft, the grand theft of everything. Hang on a second here.
Yeah, I can't answer.
Why can't we do this
call? Let me see here.
Hold on, folks. This is live radio, so anyway, and television, I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
So yeah, go ahead and handle that. But look, what's going on in Spain and in the West, in East, or in Europe? Again, canary in the coal mine, and I stress that because back, I think it was in July, we had said, watch what goes on in Europe. I'm looking for my notes from that particular broadcast. Watch what goes on in Europe because it's coming here. When you see riots, when you see uprising in Spain, when you see uprising in the various countries, here it is, right here. You know it's time. You know the time is short. I'm sorry about that. You know the time is short, and here it is. Okay. Now, a couple other things too. At the same time, note that right now the Fed. And understand this, the Fed is actually buying up well over 65% of our government debt, our own debt. I think Max Kaiser had the appropriate term for this called debtflation. And that's the demand for the U.S. debt is dropping because the confidence is dropping. And, if we look at things, Goldman Sachs derivatives sale in Europe, they're up 150%, and they've been going up at that rate for the last few months. The accumulation of debt by U.S. presidents prior to Ronald Reagan, it was 7%. That was our debt. That was prior to Reagan. Reagan had he increased the national debt by 13.2%. And the reason I'm telling you this is because to give you a little bit of context and perspective as to where we're at. Reagan pushed up the debt to 13.2%. Under George Herbert Walker Bush, it was 10.5%. Clinton, 9.8% in his 8 years. Now you might think, well, geez, Clinton didn't do too bad of a job. No, but that figure is misleading. The national debt went down. The growth of the national debt went down. However, it was during that time that the Glass-Steagall Act was repealed. Now, that was a bipartisan effort. So I don't want to make this about right and left or Republican and Democrat because they're both guilty of sin. Under George W. Bush, the debt increased by 42.7% between 2001 and 2009. Why? Well, hey, a big part of that, sorry to tell you, whether you want to hear this or not, a big part of that went to the war defense effort, funding the war. And Obama increased in 3 years, increased the national debt by 17%. I'm sorry. So, where does that put us now? Well, you might think, okay, well, that 17% isn't bad compared to, the 42% under Bush. Well, with the QE3, we're adding almost $1 trillion. Not quite $1 trillion, but every three and a third months. Right now, our debt is $16 trillion. And folks, did you know that at the Republican convention they had again, I don't want to really get into parties here, but they had the debt clock at the Republican convention, but they didn't have it at the Democratic convention. Well, again, it's the progressive mindset here where we can borrow ourselves out of debt or borrow ourselves into recovery. Here's the problem. We're debasing our currency. And the other problem that we have, and I want everyone to really keep their eyes on this, oil right now, our economy, there's one thing our economy is based on, the survival or the health of our economy, and that is this. It is the free flow of oil.
And if you've seen the price of the barrel of oil has been going down.
Exactly. That's because there is a glut of oil here. Now, when I say a glut, I'm talking in relative terms. In other words, the demand or the supply is equal to or greater than the demand. But once the Strait of Hormuz is closed, or something happens where the free flow of oil is interrupted in any way, shape, or form, because oil is priced in U.S. dollars, that's it. That will give you probably, I've heard estimates between 72 hours and 30 days, okay, before the economy goes south. That is going to be your number one, I would say, at that point when you see the free flow of oil interrupted, I would say, folks, now is the time to really expect, you've got a period of time now, a very short window of time, and take advantage of that. If you haven't, whatever preparations, last-minute preparations you haven't made, make them. Make sure you make them. Now, I'm not saying wait until that happens because, hey, it could happen overnight when you're sleeping, and things could go really bad really quick. So,
we're getting a message from Stan. He's trying to connect. And Stan, if you can hear us, our producer, Cuban, C-U-B-N, is trying to send you a contact request. And
yeah, Christians United Broadcasting.
He said Stan's going to reboot his system, and he will try to see if that fixes the problem. And hopefully it will. If not, we will have to call him via phone. And sorry for the delay. I don't know why he's not.
I'm just trying to decipher what he said there.
Yeah, he will be on. We're just trying to work out.
Everything's fine, folks. Chill out. Everything's fine. Things happen like this. But anyway, you've got. I mean, the economy is a big thing. That's it. So, what do you have for us here?
Another story I want to get into.
Oh, this is important.
Over 1,000 pastors are set to defy IRS redefine separation of church and state. This is sources from Addicting Info. It says the Alliance Defending Freedom, a group of ministries is with a clearly conservative political agenda, have announced their intention to confront the International Revenue Service and the U.S. Constitution over the issue of political speech from the pulpit. A 1954 amendment to the tax code prohibits tax-exempt organizations such as churches from making political endorsements. This group intends to videotape over 1,000 pastors doing just that and sending the tapes to the IRS is what they're going to do.
Well, now, explain. And here's the thing: they've got when you say against making any political endorsements, when you hear people saying, "Oh, they got to keep the 501c3 status," that's what they're talking about, the tax exempt status. Once you get on the pulpit, regardless of denomination, if you say vote for X candidate, whether it's local, state, or national, you then lose. If you are reported, or if the IRS finds out, you lose your tax-exempt status. That said, because of the health care bill, this is all about the health care bill and mandating abortions. That's the context in which this was talked about. Where go ahead, and I'd like you to finish that, because I think it's important to understand here
the purpose
what's going on. This is war. This is war without firing a shot.
The purpose is to force the government to impose sanctions on one or more of the churches as a prelude to a court case challenging the constitutionality of the law. The amendment states tax-exempt organizations such as churches are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office. Violation of this restriction may result in denial or revocation of the tax-exempt status, the 501c3 as it's known as, and the imposing of certain other taxes. According to Eric Stanley, senior legal counsel for the group, in an interview with Fox News, the purpose is to make sure that the pastor and not the IRS decides what is said from the pulpit. It is a head-on constitutional challenge. We are hoping the IRS will respond by doing what they have threatened. We have to wait for it to be applied a particular church or a pastor so that we can challenge it in court. We don't think it's going to take long for a judge to strike this down as unconstitutional. And I'm in complete agreement with this. There is no need for the federal government to be telling churches what they can or cannot talk about, who they can or cannot endorse, regardless of tax status. And while we're going back here with Stan. It looks like he is rebooted. We're going to try to add him to the call.
I just sent him a note saying that to do it through Troy, the Christians United Broadcasting Network.
Okay.
So, yeah, just hang loose, folks. So anyway, the big thing. Let's see here. There we go.
All right.
All right, we got that taken care of. Again, the joys of radio. Now, we're doing this because, folks, if you did not hear last night's show, Greg Evenson, what a great guy. Folks, go back and listen to it. It was a fantastic information. But a lot of what we were hearing here through our headset and our headphones was ear-bleeding, screeching, white noise stuff.
And like usual, it did not go through to the archives.
Right. And we had a tech in here checking out our system, our boards. I mean, this is our second upgrade this year. So and the tech said, "Look, it's not your equipment. There's nothing wrong with your equipment." So then we did just a whole host of troubleshooting, and finally the tech said, "Huh, you got somebody that really doesn't want you to, that just wants to harass you." And I said, "Well, the phone book. Just take a phone book, pick a name." Well, we figured to avoid all of this and avoid bad broadcasts or ones that distract us through the white noise. Christians United Broadcasting Network has been kind enough to actually produce our show and run things through their equipment. So, which is great, which is fantastic, and I can't thank Troy enough, folks. Christians United Broadcasting Network, they're top notch. So while we're standing on here,
I don't know why we're having problems.
And hey, look, it's just the way it is with our program. It seems like.
Okay, it looks like Troy. It looks like Stan is on with us now.
Stan, are you there?
I am here.
Man, it's good to talk to you, my friend.
Hey, bit difficult today, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, what was going on?
You okay?
I have no idea what was happening.
Well, it's amazing the amount of trouble we go through to get when we have prominent guests on, such as yourself. There seems to be a common element of trouble that appears or arises every time someone of status comes on.
It's as if we've got little gremlins in our equipment to stand. But I got to tell you, folks, if you want to see Stan Deyo live, because we are simulcasting this in high-def video, go to Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can see Mr. Deyo in full color definition, and what a dapper-looking man he is. Stan,
it's been a while since you've been on our show, and I don't know. I think February or March was the last time you were on. A lot has happened and changed since then. There are things happening with the Earth that are unexplainable from my views, and the skies as well. What is on your radar right now as far as Earth changes?
What's going on, my friend?
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on with the earthquakes and the... I'm just adjusting a thing here. I didn't know we were doing video, so I'd have prettied up otherwise.
Oh, you look great.
The earthquakes and volcanoes are working together. Just as we went on air here about 2 minutes ago, I got a report of a 6.9 earthquake in the Aleutian Islands. It just came in. And there was one about a 4.0 in Utah that they've canceled just a few minutes later and said, that didn't really happen. So Lord only knows what that's from. But I'm seeing small earthquakes, lots of them, in various places across the United States, in the top part of the Gulf of California, the southern part just beneath the Salton Sea. There's been about, I think about 300 earthquakes today, in the last 7 days. And today we've had some that were further down the thing toward the tip where there are no volcanoes, but there is a fault line that joins into the plate tectonic border between the United States and the Pacific. I'm just looking at that now then as I'm talking. I'm still trying to get my computer back up after being down. Anyway, what we're seeing is magma down in that area in the Gulf of California, right up to the north end of it, where it touches, Tijuana area. That area is only about 20 meters thick, and underneath that is a flowing river of hot magma. So you're looking at about maybe 60 feet maximum. People don't realize they're walking on this very dicey, thin sandbar over the top of some real hot stuff. So it's been that way for a while, but the activity that we're seeing is a matter of concern for me, because the faults around Los Angeles, Santa Ana, Oceanside, San Diego, all those around the San Andreas Fault and along the fault line on where the plates join the border. In the last 7 days, there have been 381 earthquakes that are over 2.5. And that may not seem like much, and they're shallow things, but it's indicating something is active there. And it's only been about 10 days or less since we had that huge swarm down at Salton Sea in the south near San Diego. So or south of San Diego. So something is happening there, and we're keeping an eye on that, and on New Zealand as well. The North Island of New Zealand has three volcanoes that are to level 1 or just about level 1. One of them is, which means that an eruption is not imminent. But we've been watching the earthquakes around Lake Taupo, which is near Ruapeu, and it's between Ruapeu and White Island, north of North Island. We know that eventually this area, the Lake Taupo area, will erupt. But when it does, what's going to happen is going to be a fracture underneath the lake, which is a large lake, that will allow the water to drain down into a pool of hot magma. And when it does that, it will be a very violent steam eruption that will occur, one of the most violent types of eruption you can get. And in that area, it will certainly throw rocks, big boulders, for tens of miles, if not further. And some magma will come with that as an afterthought, I think, when it explodes. But the last time this Lake Taupo eruption occurred was around 85 A.D., and I forget how many cubic miles of junk it threw up, but the Chinese astronomers of the day recorded 3 days of darkness, total darkness in China, the northern hemisphere, after this erupted. So it gives you an idea of how violent that could be and has been in the past.
Wow. We're seeing...
So is that what we're going to be seeing now, or is that what we're seeing, or
it's?
Could be seeing, I should say.
You could be seeing this sometime in the next 2 or 3 years. When I was down there in Australia, I had a dream vision of this place, this Lake Taupo. I'd never heard of it at the time. I lived on the other side of Australia in Perth at the time, and I didn't know about this area and the history of it. But I saw the water getting warm and rising up, and then there was this, it sank as it folded into the bottom of the Lake Taupo to start the eruption, which was going to kill a lot of people. I even saw people with backpacks, visitors, tourists, and some military personnel because they had the camo bags and pants on. I saw all this and went over there with Holly a few months later to do a lecture in Auckland, and I found this place. We drove down. I had such an accurate dream that I even had been inside the lakeside motel right there on the north end of Lake Taupo, and I could take you straight to where the doorway to the bar was down on the right hallway. I could tell the people there that their safe was too hot to handle because the floor was hot, which it was. So I know that this was a dream vision that was real. Now, I posted that, and I also announced it on the Art Bell show. We announced that, years ago, about 1997, I think it was, or 98. And I thought, well, this, I'll talk about it because the show is in America. They won't hear it down here too much, and New Zealand won't get excited. Well, people really did get excited. The Maoris already knew that this is going to happen. Their kahuna, the chief, prophecy lady, heard the show. The Department of Tourism in New Zealand heard the show and told me never to come back. Well, I was hurting tourism, and so they're crazy down there. The tourists that come in, I've seen them skiing down the slopes on the west side of Ruapeu when it was in eruption. It was throwing magma out on the other side, and pieces of it were flying over and down onto the ski slopes. And there were people skiing ahead of the junk coming over because they thought it was fun.
Oh, man.
Dear. The gene pool doesn't need them.
I'm trying to get a mental picture of that, actually. Okay. Oh, man.
If we had to pick one thing, Stan, what is most important on your radar of things happening with the Earth today?
Yeah.
What should we be watching
that's
for? What should we be concerned?
Let me ask you this before we get to there. You guys have connections like we do into various government agencies and
yes, sir.
Military. Have you heard anything warning of something happening in October?
Yes. But it's been non-specific.
And it's not, I don't think, related to natural disasters or Earth.
Well, that's what we're being told. It's not related to natural.
Well, now, I've had one source inside, an organization that your site is named after, that, Homeland Security, of course. But anyway, he wouldn't tell me exactly what, but several weeks ago he told me between that time and the end of October that there would be a massive, catastrophic solar event. I said, well, don't stop there. And he said, I'm going to tell you this once more. And he repeated those words exactly. I said, that's all I get? And he said, that's all you get. Okay. So I checked around, and other people were telling me that the hospitals in Florida and our local hospitals here, they were being told to prepare for an emergency where their service would be needed in October. Okay, well, that could be from a solar event. It could be from an EMP that wipes out power coming from a coronal mass ejection. Okay, what else is happening? Well, we've got the Middle East about to erupt over there, and Netanyahu's being snubbed, at least publicly anyway, by the president here, as are a number of other leaders in the area. I mean, it's interrupting his holiday schedule. Now, whether that's really true or whether he's got backroom deals going on he doesn't want anybody to know about, I don't know. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, even though I hate to do that. There is something brewing which will give our country, the White House, the excuse to counter terrorism, which may be a false flag event that occurs over here, in conjunction with Israel doing something to Iran to try to stop their nuclear program from proceeding because they want to destroy Israel. That could be a reason. Now, just in the last 3 days, I got another kind of warning from one of these nameless sources. If you're going to travel further than about 20 or 30 miles from your home in October, don't, because you run the risk of not being able to return home. I thought, okay, why is that? And the only thing I can figure is that martial law and roadblocks will be set up to block traffic and ostensibly to catch terrorists when we get into this thing in the Middle East. Now, the Middle East, we know when that goes, Russia is going to be forced by treaty to defend some of the Middle Eastern countries like Syria, Iran, and Lebanon, which is going to mean that they're going to have to try to neuter the United States. You know Larry Taylor, don't you?
Larry Taylor. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. He had several years ago a vision, and he doesn't get them often, but he did get this when he reported it, and it was called the Missiles of October, and he saw nuclear missiles striking the United States. Oh. He's not the only one that's had that dream. Jim Rawls, in his book The Patriot, set the time for the eruption for the collapse of the U.S. economy in October of the year that, he set his time frame in the book, which was after 2006. All of these things kind of add up. And yesterday, the capstone of all this, I was in buying some, military supplies at a local kind of, bullet, shooting gear, camo gear shop that I know. And there was a policeman in there buying ammo for himself, for his 9mm. And we got to talking. He turned out to be a Christian gentleman. And as he talked more and more, he mentioned the fact that they had been told to get ready for civil disobedience or civil disorder in October. I said, well, what from? He says, they wouldn't say, just that we better kind of be on our toes. And so he was walking out with more ammo in his hands. I'm thinking, man, something is going on. I don't know what, though.
Well, Stan, I was at a gun shop today, the very, very large gun shop, just to kind of get the feel. Actually, I went in there to talk with the owner to get the feel of what how things work, because they deal a lot with law enforcement, and I find that you could talk to them better than you can talk to law enforcement. I mean, although anyway, he said the gentleman that I spoke with said, I don't know what's going on, but we've sold more ammunition here in the last 30 days than we sold the entire the first 9 months of the year, or first 8 months of the year. So
that's a lot.
Yeah. And so I said, is this personal? Are people, citizens buying it? And he said, well, the majority of the ammunition is being bought or purchased by police officers, but not via their department independently. And I thought, wow, if you think about that, what do they know that we don't know? But again, would the normal street cop have that level of information, or is it intuitive, or is it maybe just nudge from somebody on top saying, hey, you better stock up? Again, those are questions that he couldn't answer, but certainly the observations were critical in my estimation. So, I mean,
there is something afoot, and as you say, the street level police, most of them wouldn't know unless someone at a higher clearance leaked it to them. And I know that what we're hearing, from your sources and mine, is probably intentionally leaked so as not to create a panic, because a lot of, just normal folks that don't follow what we talk about wouldn't even hear the kind of leaks that we're talking about. But yet certain segments of the community are being warned, like we are, so that we can share it with others, and they can take it or leave it. And, I guess if I were in the position to tell people that something, earth-shattering, a life-threatening event for the country or the planet were about to happen, that I wouldn't just come out officially and tell them, because it would create anarchy in the streets. But and if the thing doesn't happen, then you've hurt your country and the world by letting people panic like that. So I would do the same thing. I would leak information unofficially and let it kind of filter out into the population. And this is what's been going on for the last 6 weeks that I know about.
So, I mean, what do you, Stan, do you think that, and I'm sorry, I know you had a question, but are we looking at the two sources, or the two things you mentioned? It could be like an EMP type thing, or it could be a coronal mass ejection where, I mean, are you kind of leaning, if you had to make a stab in the dark, a guess, an educated guess, I guess, what would you think? Something EMP, nuclear, or solar?
I think I'm going to rule out solar for the moment, because I'm very suspicious that something like this is happening just before the elections for president, when the president is behind and likely to lose the election. So he's got to pull a rabbit out of the hat, or encourage a threat that needs military or martial law here, and that will give an excuse to postpone or cancel the elections. I feel it's just too close and too coincidental to not think that it's related to something political on his part.
Okay.
That's just my thought. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
no, I think, look, I'll tell you what, I would... I got so much respect for you, and going back to listening. I remember Joe and I would listen to you on Art Bell, and when Art Bell was, around the 90s.
Wasn't that a good time? I loved his show.
I'm going to tell you something, Joe. I
grew up. Yeah.
I mean, I'd make him live. Well, I would
before grade school. He would get me up early in the morning, and we'd listen to Coast to Coast just about every day.
And you were my you and Steve and Philip Hogue, who we're going to have on, and there was another gentleman. Oh, I used to like Richard Hoagland too.
Yeah, he was entertaining.
Yeah, entertaining, I guess, is the word.
Mr. Deo, yes. Some questions from our listeners. We have a bunch of questions. One listener wants to know about Nibiru.
Nibiru?
Yeah, Planet X, Nibiru. I've done a lot of research on this, and I saw all the stuff that happened with the common Elenin and the Nibiru that was being promoted back in 2011, right. And it was leaked to John Moore on his show, and somebody on his show, made a statement that it could be passing our planet sometime, that this time has already passed. And people are wondering, is this planet real? Is this thing out there? Is there something out there that is posing a danger? I know there's an asteroid that is going to come very close to hitting the Earth in February, I think the 13th of 2013, or February 12th, one of those days. But is Nibiru real? Is there a real threat out there?
Yeah, help
Well,
us.
first of all, sorry.
No, Stan, you set me straight on this because I don't know what to believe or who to believe, but I'll believe whatever you tell me. I got to tell you that.
It's like you and Joe. I try to vet this kind of stuff so that we don't go off half-cocked and, send a lot of people down, a happy trail to nothing. It's a time waster if we can't prove it. And so I'm going to preface what I'm going to say by that. But we know that there was some kind of an explosion on Jupiter recently, and there was nothing there that we could track that was like a meteor or a comet striking it, but it made a big splash. So it may have hit on the backside. I don't know. We are seeing a few more larger meteorites strike the planet. I've even seen videos on YouTube of people with their iPhones taking the pictures of the trails that are coming into the atmosphere even in the daylight. So this does indicate to me that something that we're passing through the Earth is passing through more chunks of stuff that we haven't registered or seen or tracked, at least out in the public. The asteroid that you're talking about, Joe, that might be coming close to Earth, if I'm talking about the same one, it will come out on the other side of the moon, probably 4 or 5 times the distance of the moon from the Earth, if that's the same one I'm looking at. So that's DA14, 2012 DA14. What? How many AUs is it?
I'm pulling this up right now. Asteroid to pass within moon's distance, February 15th, 2003.
2013.
I'm sorry, 2013. The distance is about 240,000 miles away.
Okay, that's a different one. That's okay. Okay, that's different. That is close.
Yeah, it's. I'm not seeing the AU here yet.
It'd be a .01 something or .00 something. It'd be tiny. Okay, I missed that one. I'll have to go and check on that. Anyway, now as far as a Planet X, for many years now, there's been attempts to find the 10th planet that was, we thought, perturbing the orbits of Neptune and Uranus. And now the conventional wisdom in the establishment is that these anomalous behaviors of Neptune and Uranus are due to smaller objects and nothing to do with a 10th planet or anything like that being enclosed. My figures, however, I've been working on a solution to the solar system and where stable orbits have to be, where they form around our sun at this time in its existence. And the equation I've got is a geometric equation which calculates the volume of space, say, of the sun, and then the next volume of space out where Mercury is, and that gives you a jump of the volume of space. It's very dense, if you wish, in energy, and you expand that by this factor of 1.87, I think it is. I'll have to look at my equations, but anyway, there is an expanding coefficient, a slightly expanding geometric coefficient, that tells you where orbits of things can be stable, like in a splash ring around a stone dropped in a pond. You get these ripples that go out. But in our case, these ripples are almost stationary. They keep approximately the same radius or mean radius to the sun. So using that, I went out as far as I could, before the accuracy I figured wasn't there. And my forecasts are much more accurate than the Bode law, which is what they've been using before to predict where planets would be. I have a reason, not an observation. I have a reason to calculate these orbits, and that's how I was able to do the equation. Well, I found an orbit, a stable orbit, 238 times the distance of the Earth from the Sun, and its mean orbital time is 3,600 years, plus or minus about 10 years. Now, this coincides with this Mayan calendar repetition thing at around 3,600 years. The planet Nibiru comes around that often. Now, I don't know if there is anything in that orbit, but if it is, I think it is going to be in a very kind of elliptical, stretched egg shape, and right around the sun, where it comes around the sun, it will speed up incredibly fast, And in relative terms, its whole orbit is like 3,600 years. But down here, from Mars to the other side of the sun and back out, if this thing is here, and I think it's coming in from the southern hemisphere if it is, if it's here, it's already in the system coming up from underneath, and it will only be in this area 10 to 11 years, and then it's gone. It's very fast as it approaches and orbits the sun. We're just using the sun as one point of this long elliptical inclined orbit. I have tried to get astronomers in the southern hemisphere, in Tasmania, New Zealand, Australia, trying to get them to give me any information they've got on this, officially or unofficially. And so far, no one has given me any proof of, a dwarf star, a large planet. But this doesn't mean it's not there. If it's a dark planet like coal or black non-reflective substance, we wouldn't be able to pick it up unless we had some kind of an infrared telescope that could determine it from its heat. And since it's out there in cold orbit, it might not be showing heat.
Isn't that don't we have the IRIS telescope or satellite that's out there now that does that?
Yeah, but can we access it ourselves?
Yeah, right. That's true.
Right.
That's the problem. And so I'm, as much as I'd like to say, it's there, I can't be positive yet.
Yeah, so what you're saying is we don't know because the information that the government receives would not be filtered down to us properly because of the implications it may have if it's, could pose a threat to us.
Yeah.
Stan, if I may, let me see if I understand this correctly. What you're saying is there seems to be something there. Or am I reading that wrong?
I think there is something there, and maybe two or three somethings that periodically cause the orbits of planets to be jostled. Okay. There's a fluid in space that is so fine that I could say like it's a million times smaller in size than the smallest atom that we know about. This fluid spins, and we can get into that some of the time why this happens, but that spinning fluid is like water spinning in a glass, spinning in a glass that you pour some sand and some pepper into, and you'll see the little mound form in the center of the glass at the bottom. And that spin organizes those atoms of sand and pepper so that they clump together into that formation down there, which concentrates all of their own spins, gravity in essence, so that you have very strong concentrated gravity around that, which could be a planet or a moon or a star or a galaxy. It's organized by this very weak gravitational field that NASA's been saying that they're trying to find for years, and it's right there in front of everybody. And I think that's just probably another thing that they're not ready to make a public comment about. But that forms these invisible splash rings, if you wish, around the sun. And this object out there, or whatever, there could be more than one, when it comes in and perturbs our orbit, it doesn't have to come close to the Earth. It can do it on the other side of the sun as long as it hits our orbital ring. And when it does that, we see the ring do this kind of stuff. And that's not going to be nice on our planet. I mean, it's weak gravitational oscillations, but it can cause our orbit to shake. And at this time, when our magnetic field is weakening on the planet, and the sun's magnetic field is in its reversal, it's 22 years Hale magnetic cycle reversal, and we're approaching the peak of that in the next 12 months, our magnetic field could flip-flop due to this jostling.
Okay.
And the sun, it's putting out charged magnetic particles, protons, and because our field is weakening, it may be more susceptible to the solar wind particles hitting us and flip because of that. So all of these factors can cause earthquakes and heating of the planet, gravitational heating, that kind of stuff, with this mystery object not even being in sight.
Interesting.
It is, and it's just...
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, I've looked at this Nibiru Planet X thing front and backwards. I don't have an opinion if it's there or not. Just from everything I've seen... and from reading the Bible, knowing of how it speaks of wormwood, we know that the earth will be struck eventually, as it is told in prophecy.
Do we really?
Well, in prophecy, it does say
yes.
the wormwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we know that will come to fruition eventually.
Okay.
And it just seems like so many other instances when it comes to the government and things going on. When we look into these Planet X Nibiru's, more questions come up than answers, and you get a hard time trying to get any real answers. But we do know a few things. We know NASA. I'm pretty sure it was NASA told released a video telling their employees to be prepared, have food storage, almost like there was some kind of an event going to occur. We see massive preparations by our government buying up all kinds of supplies, whether it be coffins, coffin liners, meals, bullets, underground bunkers. So obviously people are preparing for something, and what that something is the problem we're having figuring out.
Well, let me also add the other factor that may come to play here is something that we don't experience very frequently. It's in thousands of years, and that is as the Earth and our Sun, as our whole solar system orbits around our galaxy center, the Milky Way galaxy, it is doing this as it goes around in its orbit. So we're going up and down through the equatorial plane of the galaxy. We're approaching that. We're on the edge of it already. And only in the last few years have astronomers found that every galaxy they can find has a supermassive black hole in the center of it. And surprise, surprise, new instruments in orbit in the last 12 months have shown very high-frequency energy bursts coming out of many stars that have supermassive, or galaxies rather, that have supermassive black holes. And previously, under the established physical model of the universe, it was believed that a black hole sucked energy in and never let it go. But that's not the case. And my formulas do predict that galaxies, stars, and planets will periodically release bursts of energy out their polar regions. And what we don't know is there's a pole emitting energy out, and it comes into the equatorial plane from the north side of a galaxy or a planet or a star, and also from the southern side. Where these meet, they form this invisible plate of energy. And we're going through that right now in our galaxy. We may not be able to see it, but I suspect that as the Bible prophecies do predict, in the Old Testament and in the book of Revelation, in Ezekiel and Revelation, that there will be a cloud surround the sun. And that cloud will be so dense that the sun will almost go black and the moon won't give its light during that period of time. Now, other things may happen to our sun as this transpires, which will cause different frequencies to be emitted out into the solar system from the sun. If our magnetic field is weak enough at the time, the go away.
Hey, that happens here all the time.
Yeah. If our magnetic field is weak enough at the time, the sun may emit ultraviolet radiation in such concentrations that it will be hazardous to life, both flora and fauna, on the planet and under the top layers of the oceans. The Bible does say that a third of the fish will die. They'll probably boil on the surface. Green grass and green trees will die. This could be from infrared heat, because also in the Revelation it does speak of the moon's light being 7 times brighter, than it normally is, which means that the sun is putting out light of 7 days. Now, all that light may not be infrared, so if it were 7 times as hot, we'd boil ourselves, even if we were underground, but there is going to be an increased heat from the sun. And all of these things, I think, when you add them together, we are definitely going through the equatorial plane of a supermassive black hole. And our supermassive black hole in the Milky Way galaxy is opening up at the poles and starting to emit energy out. They've detected that with this new satellite. So something is definitely different right now.
I got a question. You just mentioned something about the sun shining more light, being brighter. I see a lot of people commenting about this. About 20 years ago, the sun looked more yellow. Now it's so white you can't look into it. Is this what we're seeing? The sun is getting brighter?
Look, I know for a fact, because I talked to the astronomer and did this down at the Heliospheric Atmospheric Research Center in Arizona. And the sun in 1992 started putting out 2 new ultraviolet frequencies. Now, I asked him, because he wrote a paper on this, and which I have a copy of here, what this meant. Is this ultraviolet radiation going to give us cancers? He said, no, I don't think that's going to be the problem. And this is, from 1992 forward. He said, this ultraviolet radiation is being absorbed by phytoplankton and archaeobacterium in the oceans, and they're multiplying and keeping the energy in instead of letting it reflect back out. And so they're heating up the oceans, just the life forms. And, if this is happening and we're getting more ultraviolet, we have a real problem facing us. I talked to the Air Force officer there at Liramuth Observatory in West Australia at the same time, and it was an Air Force officer, and she said the same thing. They've been given the briefing on that ultraviolet spectral emissions. We're now seeing more of that, and when Holly and I were down in Perth in West Australia, we were there when the ozone hole opened up over Perth, and it was for weeks. And when it did, the light was very blue-white, like you were saying, Joe. Mm-hmm. The sun was so powerful in that white light that when I would drive down the freeway in the daytime with my window rolled down like normal, the light hitting my blue jeans felt like I was being hit with pinpricks in my leg. They were advising over the radio to the women who were hanging out white linens, wear sunglasses to protect your eyes. And I would find on several occasions at different times of the day driving down the freeways there that my eyes would start to cry just from the brightness of it. They'd just start to water. So, this is definitely a problem.
My word.
Yeah, I'm an amateur astronomer. I have a telescope, and I've been monitoring the sky as often as I can. Pretty much every time it's clear after we do our show, I'll try to go out there. And I've seen some incredible things. It's just not right to me. And people in our chat room are commenting on how the moon looks off. And I've seen the stars and so many odd things in the stars, and it seems like the whole sky, the whole system, the universe is out of order. As it says in the Bible, the signs or things will not be right or not appear to be right in the ending of the age. It's almost like that's what I'm seeing. It's confusing. One night the stars will be in one place, and the next night there'll be new stars or different stars. It just seems all out of order.
Do you know the program Stellarium?
Yes, I have that program.
Have you been able to verify that Stellarium's predicted position of, say, the moon and some of the planets and stars corresponds on a certain date when you look up there with your telescope? Are they correlating, or is it off?
I don't use Stellarium too often.
What you told me, though,
I use a program called Google Sky on my phone when I'm outside, and I should take my computer out there and use Stellarium.
Yeah. But I think the last time you used that, and this has been a while, you said that there was something, you thought it was a computer problem. There was something not right with that's just from memory. Yeah. I remember you having a problem with that.
Yeah. Basically, from what I'm using, the app I'm using, the positions are off. They're not where they say they
should be.
Yeah.
Are they off more in the evening or in the morning?
I would say it would be more in the evening.
Yes. And we're getting reports from Alaska from people up there. Same thing. The sun rises in the right place, but it sets in the wrong place on the mountains, and it's always set in that place. These are Eskimos telling us.
Yeah.
You remember in the Bible where the earth, God made the earth or the sun stand still in the sky, for so many hours and go backwards? Okay. Now watch my hand. Here is the earth. Now it's spinning this way normally. But suppose that it were to spin around a certain point, say Israel, change and wobble around this, to the observer down here, the sun would be in the same position, so it would appear to stop, even though we're just orbiting, rather than our normal spin around this axis, we're going around a new axis for a short time. It's like a top that you throw on the floor. When it's getting tired and about ready to fall, you'll see these jerky spin motions as it changes its axis of spin and goes back to normal for a while, and then now it goes weird, and then it goes back. I think that is what happened back then. So now we may be approaching that where physically our poles will undergo this periodic jerky motion and the sun will appear to set in the wrong place. We should be able to calculate where that new spin axis is by the deviation of known points in the sky. Maybe you could figure out a way to do that, Joe.
Yeah. One thing I have noticed, on my phone, there's an app that has a compass on it, and the magnetic north and true north are different. You can choose if you want true north or magnetic north.
Well, that's
so. In magnetic north, as they had to change the runways, that's always the big clip I see on the YouTube videos. They had to redo the runways because the north shifted so much that it screwed up the compasses. Are we still, and this is something I have not seen, are we still experiencing a shift faster than usual?
I haven't checked in the last few weeks, but the thing that's interesting is that the shift of the North Pole was observably, several times faster than the shift of the South Pole, which tells you that our axis of rotation to the South Pole was fairly stable, yet this one up here was doing this. Do you see what I'm saying? So that would give you rising and setting different positions for known stars and our sun as well. That's why I think you could probably sort of estimate where that axis of wobble is. And it's not Chandler's wobble because, that's 23.5 degrees. It's there all the time. But, boy, hey, what kind of telescope do you use?
What is it, 8?
It's a hard from Stan. You remember when you were on Coast to Coast? They had the Hardin Optical, those huge telescopes that Hardin Optical used to advertise with Art Bell.
Yeah, were they 8-inch or 6-inch or what?
8-inch.
Yeah. Can you dial in what you want to look at and look for it?
No,
we don't have or he doesn't have the.
No, and I'm thinking about getting some kind of camera mount or getting something put on there, an attachment where I can do more with the telescope than just watch for myself. Because what I'm seeing, I wish I could show other people because it is just amazing the things I see flying through the sky, the weird things that, the lights blink on and off. I mean, in deep space I'm talking about sometimes. It's just...
They're not orbital things. They're way out there, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I've been looking for, UFOs, and I don't believe in aliens. I believe, it's either heavenly or evil. But I've always looked for UFOs in the sky. I've never seen them. And then this year, whatever happened, once I started looking this year, I saw them constantly. And it was always seemed to be at the beginning, right after dusk, and mostly most concentrated at the beginning of the evening where I am. But I mean, every night I would see some anomaly I could not explain, and it just gets weirder and weirder. And with
Let me ask you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again?
Well, I said with drones and other unmanned flying machines that we have now, and the technologies we don't even know about. I don't know if I'm looking at asteroids, drones, or something that is beyond my comprehension because it's not released to the public.
I don't think you can see Canopus from here, can you, in the northern hemisphere? That's a southern hemisphere star.
No, I don't believe so.
I'm not sure.
A guy, one of our visitors to our site, sent me an iPhone video that he made of Canopus at night in a parking lot where there were lights around stuff, and it was not a lens, flare that he filmed. You can't see normal stars on an iPhone. We could see Canopus blinking very bright white and then back to normal.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about. And I'm just, it wasn't moving, but it certainly was where Canopus should be according to Stellarium for that date and time and location. I don't know if it's an atmospheric aberration that's doing that or what. It probably is. But now, the UFOs that you say you saw,
were
they moving?
Also, I videotaped a few.
Did they make irregular zigzag motions or
straight line? Big bright white light on and off. It would blink on and off sometimes. It seemed like a timed on-off light. The way they changed
a satellite that's tumbling and reflecting light from the sun can do that.
And I mean, I'm talking like it looked close. So what I have on video was just a circular ball of light that went from north to south. From horizon to horizon in a matter of 30 seconds, and it definitely was something I've never seen before. I could not explain it. And
that's a circumpolar orbit, which is quite rare.
Yeah, I'll have to send you the video.
Right.
and you can take a look at it. But I see stuff like that all the time, and I just have so many questions. I just wish I knew what I was looking at. And Space Junk. There's an app for Android phones called Space Junk. You can look and see, and I've done this to see if what I'm seeing is satellites in orbit, and I have found that you can see satellites with the naked eye move across the sky at night, which is very interesting. Yep. So I've tried to do the elimination of possibilities, but I've noticed an uptick of very weird things in the sky, and I just wanted to let you know that because I'm sure you receive a lot on those sort of things.
I do, and I look at the ones that are more promising, fact-wise, and try to investigate them. But as yet, the only things that I'm finding that are of interest, that I can prove, have been more like normal aircraft, like KC-135s. A flight of over 50 of them flew over a guy's house. He and his neighbor, called me about it, in California the other day, heading toward Nevada. 50 or more KC-135s in formation. What were they carrying? Those are big. Troop movements that we're getting videotapes and stills of on the east and west coast as military machinery and personnel are being moved mainly inland and away from the bases where they're stationed. Why? Those are questions that are more down to earth. But I do expect more UFO sightings that are real, like they are real anti-gravity craft, whether they are man-made at this time or whether they are Satan's minions running around getting ready to give us a great deception is debatable. But I don't think that they're like some guy from Mars or Venus, some local alien like that. I don't believe that.
Well, Stan, let me ask you. Obviously, what we see today, our military armaments. I mean, look at the B-2 or B, whatever that flat-wing aircraft was. We're far more advanced technology-wise than people know. I mean, that's a correct statement, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Are there, and this is something that kind of got my curiosity up, are there anti-gravitic, is there anti-gravitic technology being used by the military, we'll say?
I think that some of the B-2 and stealth bombers and fighters have used a portion of it on leading-edge charged pulses on the leading edge, say like the B-2 and like the Wobbly Goblin, some of those. But the Aurora craft, the kind of rounded triangular craft, I think is using a full-blown electrogravitic device. In the late 70s, our man-made underground bases and undersea bases were being shared with the fallen ones, the gray ones that Satan has created to give us, a false group of bad guys for him to beat and appear to be the Messiah, And we had the Earth-made technologies and our bases. We had a war with these gray critters after they had helped us to build, infrastructure to manufacture new technologies, craft weapons, et cetera, and energy devices. They had a war with us and kicked us out of most of our bases, if not all of them, that were these underground, corridor bases and under the ice cap at the South Pole. In the late 70s, we virtually lost control of it. Now, it's possible that we are using anti-gravity in some of our above ground bases and maybe we have some underground bases that aren't shared and aren't invaded by these gray critters, these bio robots, these, what do you call them? Androids.
Right.
But we have had and have made flying saucers using anti-gravity since the early 60s. I was brought into the program after they'd already done that. We lost a lot of that stuff when this war underground took place.
Wow. And Stan, we're up against the top of the hour break. What we're going to do is we're going to take a break for about 2.5 minutes. That'll give you a chance to maybe grab a cup of coffee or something. But when we come back, I'd like to, wherever you want to go for the remaining hour, we're going to let you have free reign. But one of the things I want to ask you, though, is what, you mentioned the South Pole, and I got to tell you something. This is the second time this week I've heard something about this, something under the South Pole. And maybe if you can just take a minute to tell me what the heck's going on there, I'd really
appreciate it. Now or after the break?
After the break. We're going to take a break right now, Stan. I'll give you a chance to hydrate up, and We're going to be right back after this. Folks, you're listening to
I'm going to go check the horses, as it were.
All right. Folks, we're so pleased to have Stan Dale with us tonight on video and on audio. What a great guy. Folks, we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back after these messages with the Hagmann and Hagmann reports.
And Stan Dale on this Wednesday, September 26th.
And
stay right there.
Bookmark standale.com.
Survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
If you are stumped, you don't know what kind of gift to give to a friend or a loved one, I'm telling you, you must go to 4physics.com. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. This is your one-stop shopping palace. That's the only way I can put it. I could spend easily an hour on this website. Innovative, fun, educational. There are games, books, weather instruments, unique time-telling devices, jewelry, optical devices, laboratory equipment. Let me give you an example. We all know we can tell time with a sundial. You've seen those advertised. Did you know that you could tell time by the stars? At 4physics.com, you can buy a horologium nocturnum. This was a navigational device used in the 15th century by navigators at night to tell time by the stars. It's beautifully crafted in the shape of a pendant made of bronze and pewter or gold and silver. Absolutely a stunning gift. I would be proud to give it to anyone. You must go to 4physics.com. Even if you're not stumped, that's 4physics. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. It's your one-stop shopping palace. Any problems that you have, I don't know what to get Grandpa, I don't know what to get my loved one, that's unique, you will find it at 4physics.com. Please take my word for it. Go to the website, but give yourself a lot of time because you're not going to want to leave. 4physics.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to tell you about a product that I'm using. I'm excited about. It's called Nootropic Mind Power. It's available through mindregard.com. That's mindregard.com. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we do not endorse or talk about any product that we don't use ourselves. And I've been using this, and look, I'm 53 years old. And, did you ever walk into a room and say, what's I doing here, Or did you ever, you're looking for your glasses are on top of your head. Seriously, or if you're a writer like I am, you're trying to think of that right word. I got to tell you something. This particular product, Nootropic, or Nootropic, however you want to pronounce it, it's a cognitive enhancement supplement. And it makes a difference. I know we can't make any medical claims here. We're not doing that, but I can tell you what it did for me. It kind of regulated my blood sugar. Without me changing my diet, it regulated my blood sugar. And I'm not saying it did, but something did. This is the only difference. But I believe in this product 100%. And you take two tablets a day. The only complaint I've got is they're huge capsules. But anyway. They pack a punch, but they're also good for enhancing your They're calming your mood as well, which is another thing I need. I got to tell you that. But anyway, folks, visit mindregard.com. That's mindregard.com, and order yourself up a batch of nootropic cognitive enhancement supplements. I'm going to tell you, if you don't notice a difference, I know they have a money-back guarantee, but I think you will. I don't think anyone has returned their product. I talked to the owner, and he said maybe out of all the orders they did, maybe one they had one return. So that's a pretty good satisfaction guarantee. So that visit mindregard.com, mindregard.com.
Hold on to your seat. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's our distinct pleasure to have with us Mr. Stan Deyo. In case, folks, you don't know who Stan Deyo is, he was a regular guest on Coast to Coast AM. He was on with Art Belt all the time. He was one of my favorite guests. He held above top secret security clearance and worked undercover for the FBI. Haven't we all at one point in our lives? He was part of an exclusive black project headed by Dr. Edward Teller. And among his diverse background experience includes he's a computer programmer of mainframes in 7 languages, PC and Macintosh. He's a senior systems analyst. He's been a research physicist, both formally and self-educated. That's formally and self-educated. Marine architect. Resume? Look, this guy, the first 3 sentences of his resume puts me to shame and most normal people to shame. My favorite, absolute favorite book is The Cosmic Conspiracy. And I got to tell you, folks, go to standeyo.com. That's standeyo.com. Bookmark his site, The Cosmic Conspiracy. The final edition, written in 2010. It's a great book. I got to tell you, it's a great book. You will not be sorry that you grabbed this. And it gets into so many things, the circles of the Illuminati and all sorts of things. But anyway, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, again, with our special guest, Stan Deyo. Without further ado, we're going to bring Stan back on. And Joe,
Stan,
go ahead.
Are you back on with us?
I'm back on, but I don't have your video feed.
No, that's coming up. That you know what? That takes a couple of seconds to come up. Sorry about that.
Well, while it's coming up, I got to tell you, I hope we will be able to finish this. A big lightning storm is starting outside, and I have backup power for the backup unit here for probably 20 minutes. But okay, there you come. So if we get zapped, that's why.
You still have power now?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Hey. You want to see one of the little things that took me 100 hours to make? I've got about 20 of these. These are airframe flying saucers that use the same principle, but using air instead of gravitational fields to fly. And behind me, let's see if I can.
Holy cow!
Is this the right? Yeah.
Oh,
see that
wow.
one behind me? That's 21 inches in diameter. That one is in progress. I make my own kind of drones. That's powered by a 1/4 horsepower electric motor.
Very interesting.
You make that? You made that?
Oh yeah, it has. Let's see if I can.
And folks, you definitely go to Christians United Broadcasting Network and take a look at this. This is fabulous.
This is part of my control circuitry down in where I have the servos for controlling the flight direction, and the battery pack that's in the pod underneath, and the GPS section is up in the top here so that I can track it.
Do you freak out your neighbors? I mean, seriously.
I don't let the neighbors see all this. Even our dinner party guests, I don't take them down here if I can avoid it because it's none of their business.
Well,
but anyway,
show the world. Wow.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions, people in the chat room, and my father and I are both intrigued about these strange sounds that we were hearing at the beginning of the year that seem to continue to increase. We haven't heard too many reports of them as of lately, but I don't know, a couple months ago, almost every day there were new sounds, new reports of these strange sounds.
The rumblings and the
screeching metal, all kinds of different sounds. Some up near Michigan, Canada border.
What's up
all
with
over
that,
the place?
Okay, well, some of the ones that have been on YouTube were found to be fake. The Russians were playing with us, but the others were real. I mean, we've had people that contact us and we're recording it as we spoke, on their phones and whatever. If you have read Earth in Upheaval by Velikovsky, he mentions, I think it was in that book in his series, where one pharaoh, way back, one of the older dynasties, complained about the earth groaning and moaning during his reign. He said, when will it stop? And if I'm not mistaken, that was very close to the time of Peleg in the Old Testament. And Peleg was named Peleg at the time of the dividing of the earth, when the mainland continent split into all the continents we know today. It wasn't something that took millions of years. This happened in one reign of one pharaoh. Now, when the earth expands like that, there are going to be electromagnetic and audible results in the atmosphere. There are going to be things like whistlers in the magnetic, electromagnetic field. So the things that we're hearing now are in the low frequency band, probably under 600 cycles, and are probably resonating inside the Earth's electromagnetic field and in the air and even the dirt itself. The Earth today is at least 1/3 bigger in diameter than it was when the land masses were all together. This is proven many times over by professional physicists and or geophysicists, and even the cartoonist he's on my website in the area where I have the show images. I'm just trying to find it. If you look at our website, standeo.com, and you go down to, let me just get it up here, the site, that is. Here we go. There's a big microphone on the left of the page, and on our front page, and off to the right is the announcement that I'm doing Doug Hagmann show tonight. And you will see right under the heading of that section, show images. And that's when I do a show, I have show images. I think it's underneath in the next line. And if you click on show images, there will be several sections there of stuff to look at. Where was I going with that? What were we talking about? I'm trying to figure out which one.
The Earth expanding, which kind of got my attention.
Yeah. All right. Let me just find that here. All right. If you go to the cartoonist and illustrator Neil Adams' website, he has animated from real photos of Mars, the Earth, a moon of Titan, of the moon of our planet, and he has animated a moving, collapsing ball for each of them with the actual photos of the surfaces. And you can see how even the moon has stretched to bigger than it was when it was first all tight. And you can see where all of our continents on the Earth fit together like a glove. Normally, you can't see this because if you put a map down and you look at the continent, say this is on your look, this would be Europe and this would be the United States looking at the globe. You try to push the continents together, and there's this orange slice of space that they don't fit together and touch. But if you shrink the Earth down to 25% of its current value, which we're a third larger than what it was, right, the coastlines fit like a glove. And he animates this so you can see it, and it's just an extraordinary thing to watch. As I say, every planet that he did it with, every moon he did it with, you could see that they were once solid and smaller. So this is expansion, and it's just
holy cow.
There's so much more to learn.
I'm looking at what you're talking. Holy cow! Okay, wow.
I see one of the pictures on your show images is of actually two pictures. One of the map of the Hopi, the sea level rises. Two of the New Madrid fault. What have you been hearing about the New Madrid fault as far as I know there was a lot of military drills. Earlier this year we saw some minor quakes up and down the fault line where the Mississippi was, where the Mississippi is. And do you see, or is there talk, I mean, I know there's lots of chatter, but is there real concern that something drastic could happen with the New Madrid Fault in the very near future?
Yes, and it's not only New Madrid Fault; it's also the Yellowstone Park and the northwestern part of the United States in Washington State. If you'll click on that picture of the New Madrid Fault there, that little link will take you into another page called Key Fault Lines.
Yep.
And I've added three things at the top, which are something called lineaments, Lineaments. This long line goes diagonally across the United States, and it's a long fault line. It was first discovered by the Lewis and Clark expedition, believe it or not. And they noticed that there was this line under the soil going that way, and they recorded it. And since then, of course, there's been a lot of studies on it. If you click on the image to the right, which is number 3,
okay,
you will see that this Montana-Florida lineament has shifted greatly. And if you look at those little black dots on the left side of where it says Florida, and then look across on the other side where it says backbone, and you can see where those two at one time were connected, but they've moved apart because of the slippage along this fault line. And the Appalachian Mountains have done the same thing if you look down to the lower right.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see that?
Yeah.
So this is a little-known terror thing to me because it runs right through Yellowstone, and if Yellowstone gets busy, and even if it doesn't do a major eruption, if it shakes up the other end of this lineament, we might see slippage along that line, which could trigger the New Madrid Fault line. This may be the thing that causes the 180-year repeat or whatever it is. I forget now, but the periodic slippage in the New Madrid Fault line. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's just not really discussed.
I just want to say, Stan, folks, ladies and gentlemen, standeo.com, standeo, DEYO.com. If you haven't been there, plan on grabbing a cup of coffee and spending the entire day there. Grab a thermos of coffee. I'm going to tell you what. And while you're at it, definitely get Holly Dale's book, Dare to Prepare, and also The Cosmic Conspiracy. You won't be sorry. In Prudent Places, USA, too. But anyway, Stan, I didn't mean to interrupt. But let me take this.
Was good.
Let me take it in a different direction here.
Okay.
Before the break, I mentioned the second time this week I've heard about something under the North Pole. Okay, and
North or South Pole?
Or I'm sorry, South Pole.
Right.
And people might say, "Well, what does this have to do with anything?" Okay, but it has a lot to do with stuff, I think.
And I've heard this separate from my father. These stories separate from my father.
Stan, what's going on down there? I mean, can you give us a little bit of context with regard to why maybe this might be important today about what's going on down there? What's under the South Pole and what's going on?
Well, it's got a landmass under it, a large continent that's covered with ice. And what is strange is that the North Pole doesn't have, a continent under it. It's just ice mass in a sea up there. And that is melting. Okay, and melting in Greenland over land as well in the north. But in the south, we're having record-breaking deposits of ice down there. Now, again, little-known fact in physics and science, when you have a direct current of electricity passing through, say, a junction of two wires, it will cool one side of the junction and heat the other. And even if you have a single wire stretched across a battery, it will move if the current flows, let's say, this way. If you held a flame at this end, it will move the heat down the wire toward the other pole. The direct current will. So it will cool this pole and heat that pole. Higher the voltage, the quicker this happens. It's either the Thomson effect, which moves the heat phonons down the wire, or the Peltier effect in the dual junction thing. The South Pole is where we had, in Teller's program, you had to get to it by submarine. You had to go under the ice pack and under the landmass and into tunnels. There were natural tunnels to get in and get up underneath there, and the base was located there, and there was no way that, UFO amateurs could go and film that sucker because you had to be in a nuclear submarine or submarine anyway to get under the ice pack. I remember that I saw a picture on the wall at Dr. Maxwell's office. who was the number 2 guy for Teller, and he was showing me where he and Teller were breaking open a bottle of champagne for the under the pole trip. His first time under the pole by submarine. It was quite interesting, and the legends that the Germans, with the Hebrew project, with their flying saucer, escaped after World War II down to that area may or may not be true, but it would be a perfect place to hide and develop technology. Maybe they did it. I don't know.
Wow.
There is something lopsided about this cooling at the South Pole and heating at our North Pole, which is kind of contrary to what I thought we'd be seeing as our poles open up for a periodic small holes to open up to the interior of the planet, let heat out. But because of this dynamic electric field that we have that's directional, one directional in the Earth, it could be transferring heat from the South Pole to the North Pole as well as, the polar openings generating the heat. We know that the Russian base at Vostok in the South Pole, there's a lake down there. They were within a few hundred feet of going through the lake, and it's a lake at 32 degrees at freezing, way down deep in that where it should be just like really cold. It's a liquid, but it's at freezing temperature. Right. Now, why? When the ice pack is building, why is that area down there, warm enough to make life? So, yeah, there are a number of things. I imaged that with the Google Earth, and I think it was last year before they changed the photos around of the Vostok station. It doesn't look quite the same anymore. You can't see the hole, but we could see the dent there right where the geophysical North Pole or South Pole should be, in the image from Google. And when I started talking about it on the air, it changed.
Oh,
interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what a surprise.
Awkward silence there from me. Seriously, when I was doing an investigation on the Libyan situation, I was running into that. Just as quick as I'd click on a link, something would disappear, and so I'm a stranger to that. So wow, okay. Stan, we covered a bunch of whole different topics here, but I want to circle back if you don't mind. And
okay.
Look, the Middle East is on fire. The world's in chaos. We've got the economic collapse coming, and I know you got your finger on the pulse of all of this stuff.
Yeah,
we got the media silent as protests rage through Europe.
No, I think I know
as well. And go ahead.
Where you're going with this? People are worried and concerned about prepping, especially on tight budgets. And this is a specific question I have from a listener for you, but we can apply it to everyone in the U.S. They say they are curious on prepping recommendations for families on fixed incomes that are stuck by their jobs in their locations.
In their urban environment. Yeah, exactly.
And this person says specifically in the Pacific Northwest. But what do you recommend for people? I mean, we get so many people that say, it's so hard to prepare with low incomes, with fixed incomes. We don't have enough money to pay our bills, let alone store food. How can we help these people become...
Now, Holly and I have discussed that. I mean, we're not so well-heeled that we can do all the prep that we'd like to. We certainly don't have very much alternate power here, and I haven't got my own, free energy, if you want to, circuit working yet. I'm still working on that, trying to get it perfected. I have several fellow engineers near here, and we are all doing tests on what we think will make it work. But Holly... and I were talking about this, I guess it was over the weekend while we were taking a drive out and talking about people who could afford, bug out places and things like that. And she wrote an article, and it's kind of gone viral on the internet, addressing what people that are on low incomes should do. And it basically, I'm just trying to see here. No, I think it dropped off of today's news. It's not on the bottom of our site. It'll be there somewhere, but I'd have to ask her where it is. Anyway, the article said things like, okay, if you have done no preparation at all, if you do even a day's worth, if you get some water in Coke bottles, these plastic 2-liter bottles, if you get some freeze-dried food, or if you just can some of your own food that you normally would eat, make a little extra each meal and put it in, put it aside and then pressure cook it, or if you have a pressure cooker. If you don't, then you have to steam it and in a pan, a big canning pan, and there are ways that you do that for so many minutes to sterilize meat products and things that would go off other than vegetables, and then you seal them up and you can make your own food preserves. Now, even if you only do enough for 2 or 3 days, that's 2 or 3 days more than you had before. But some of the bigger problems are going to be if it's like a couple with small children or a couple without children. If you're trying to protect your home from looters, which we think will be quite a common event here when stuff hits the fan, if you're trying to protect your home like that, you have to sleep sometime. If there's only 2 of you as adults that can handle a weapon or keep an eye out for the bad guys outside their house, this is going to make you tired, and it's not going to work well if one of you gets sick or just collapses from exhaustion or whatever. So we're suggesting that people find in their own family group or in their neighborhood other like-minded people, at least one other couple, and 2 would be better, to form a communal group and use the biggest house, the best located house in your group. It doesn't have to be out in a farm or anything, but just 3 families or 3 couples get in that place, 2 or 3 families. And, it's going to be like the old days when we had people that slept on, rugs on the floor and on couches and stuff, and perhaps rotate that to keep the bad backs from happening. But that way you have people to help with the chores, people to help with the lookout, people to help if somebody gets wounded or hurt. And Jim Rawls' book, The Patriot, it talks about that very thing. And this was, in 2006 when he published that.
Right.
And this is, Holly had trouble reading it because it was so depressing, for him to explain what was going to happen. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but still, he laid a framework there for what people should do. And Holly's kind of, updated that in colloquial speak for people that come to our website. And by the way, there's about 170,000 unique visitors a month to our website. So there's a lot of people that see what she puts up there and then put it out onto their chat rooms, onto their blogs and whatever, and Lord knows how far it goes. But we do get a little email.
I can imagine. Holy cow! Yeah, I know. Yeah, your site is extremely popular. I mean, and it's so comprehensive, Stan. And folks, again, bookmark standeyo.com, STANDEYO.com.
Yeah,
and visit that every day.
And you must get the book there to prepare. You talk about how to.
The thing weighs like 12 pounds.
Yeah, how to store your own water. It gets into such great detail on how
I've got
prepare.
Bookmarks on that thing and everything. I mean, it's just like...
there's more information than I could have ever imagined about survival and survival tips in that book. She did an excellent job. Probably one of the best written, probably the best written preparedness book ever.
Yeah, I was just looking for a copy to hold up, but they can see better pictures on the website. Guys, I have to give her credit because she gets up at 4:30 6 days a week to work on that website, gathering news and filtering news and trying to vet the news that's suspect. And she does that website all herself. I mean, I occasionally put something up in the show images or put up an audio or something, but other than that, I don't do anything on that website. She wrote the books, The Prudent Places, USA, researched and wrote it, and she researched and wrote the Dare to Prepare book, and it has really been widely accepted. I mean, we're selling that book in pallet loads now, and I'm not kidding. It's like 384 books to a pallet, weighing about 3.8 pounds each. And this is because people are just en masse waking up and late in the game, but it tells them how to prepare on a budget even. As you were mentioning, Joe, there are 69 chapters in there, and the last few chapters are on specific preparations for a hurricane, tsunami, tornado, nuclear war, how you can actually survive the fallout cloud from a nearby nuclear blast if you aren't wiped out immediately, how you can survive in your home with dirt and newspapers and magazines and stuff stacked around you for 2 weeks until it dies down, and how you can do it in your basement if you got one. So these are practical things that we certainly look at because we have a basement here, and we can't afford to go to some bug out place like people do or want to do. It's just too expensive. So I'll have to ask Holly to put that back up on the website, up in the front page. I don't know what section it's in now, but it was a well-written article she wrote about how to do it on a budget and how to form community and just step by step how you can do little bits that don't cost much to get prepared. Every bit you do, even if it's only a little bit each day, is more than you had the day before.
Exactly. And yeah, it's, I tell my wife, when you go to the store, look, you don't have to spend a lot of money. I mean, we don't have a lot. I mean, we're pretty frugal with what we have. Just buy an extra can of tomato sauce or whatever it might be. Just buy something a little bit extra each time. And over time, it'll add up. And we've been doing that for the last several months. And I'll tell you what, it does make a difference. Now, we can't feed the neighborhood, for 2 weeks, So, okay. But Stan, what are you most concerned about right now? On your website, of course, you've got your dream, your World War III dream, possible fulfillment and such. But what keeps you awake at night right now?
I guess my part of this company is, other than the mathematic and technical and order processing stuff, I do research into this alternate energy. And last night I stayed awake from about 1:30 till now, because I was concerned with what I wanted to do test-wise, that the high voltage that it will produce on the thing out back, that our doggies could not accidentally trigger it and get killed, because it's a lethal dose of high voltage that will collect on the collector. I have studied quite a bit of various types of free energy devices, and the one I'm working on is one that is so low-tech, but yet high-tech in some ways, that if we lose access to Radio Shack and places where you can get components you need, that it won't make it impossible for you to get electricity out of these wires. Did you ever hear of Dr. T. Henry Murray?
No, sir, I haven't. And you
okay.
haven't? No.
Okay, well, he's well known in the free energy research annals. He was a Mormon fellow. He had his own business. He was president of a company and lived in Utah, of course. But he, in 1935, I think, is when he really started to shine with this device that he built, which could take from an antenna electricity and turn it into 5 kilowatts of electricity, 5,000 watts. And it would do this continuously without stopping. In fact, one test, he had it under lock and key, and Sheriff's Department people watching it for 157 hours before they turned it off, pulling that much energy. Now, he let people, judges, university professors, people that were well known, take the box apart, except for one little. The box is only about like that big, the main box, and there was a little cigar-sized box that slipped into it, and that was his magic box, his detector, he called it. And people have been trying for years, including his son, who didn't pay much attention as a child, wishes he had now, trying to figure out what was in that little box. Because one time, when it was in the big box, somebody bumped the table. That was lightning, thunder. Somebody bumped the table, and they heard this tinkling sound inside that little cigar box, and something fell off of something, and the whole thing stopped. So he took the cigar box out and turned his back and opened it up and messed around a bit and put it back together and shoved it back in the box and stroked it with a magnet over 2 little iron rods to do something to charge it up to make it work. Well, basically, he was trying to keep the secret of his invention away from those who would steal it. He wanted to have the credit and the income for it for his family. What he was doing was using a magnet across these 2 iron bars, these poles that were down inside where that cigar box was. He was using that to spin a lightweight metal thing that was generating high voltage sparks, kind of like our fire starters now, where they spark and you pull it and it's a piezo fire starter.
Yeah.
He was generating a high voltage spark that would go out of that cigar box and up to the antenna and shock the antenna. And then he'd do it a couple times until it caught, and then he would tune it. His Tesla coils inside, there were 3 series, and he'd tune it till just right, and it would continue to make power. He could do it on an antenna that was only 3 foot long. There's photos of it. He's working in his basement with witnesses all around there that signed the document. But one of the things that we noticed was that all of them, including the 85-foot one that he had outside, on the ends of it were high-voltage insulators so that the antenna was not allowed to touch something that was grounded. So I started looking at this, and I studied it for years and debated circuits back and forth, and suddenly I realized it wasn't that little tinkling box that was the mystery. The whole heart of his device was the antenna. When he was 19 years old at the turn of the 20th century, he was on a farm with his dad where they lived, and he stretched some rubber-coated wire from his dad's house over to the barn and took the end of it down into the house and was connected it to ground and realized, well, there's sparks coming through here. Where's that coming from? And he developed circuits to maintain that spark and to keep the energy out of it, but keep the charge on that antenna wire high enough that it would absorb the energy. But he didn't ever figure out where the energy was coming from. The secret was that antenna. It's insulated, and it has its own, what they call, self-resonant frequency. It's like a straight wire Tesla coil. And when he kick-started it with that spark, he made that antenna wire start to reverberate like this, to oscillate of its own accord. It wasn't being driven at some frequency. It was free oscillations. Now, when it did, it started to build up charge in the air around that insulated wire. And that envelope of charge, like an invisible balloon, was responding by collapsing like this when solar wind particles hundreds of miles away were hitting our upper atmosphere and compressing the Earth's electromagnetic field. And this was happening at odd times. He said it's like the waves of the sea coming up on the shore. They weren't regular. They would be surges of little ones and big king waves. And the same thing would happen on his device. And some of the energetic waves that would come onto the antenna from the solar wind were so added together in the same direction to physically compress his field around his antenna that it would make enough energy in one pulse to power the thing for 5 or 6 seconds, just in one pulse at 5 kilowatts. I mean, this is, to normally do this, you think you'd have to have a capacitor. Ooh, that was close.
We can hear the
feeling it's even better. Anyway, if you do the equations on the Tesla coils generating that kind of power at that frequency, you would have the equivalent of a 1 farad capacitor. And so you say, well, okay, 1 farad. That is the charge area of the entire Earth's surface in a little box because of the frequency and the high voltage. Now, I'm telling you this, I'm hoping that people that will see this, that are into electronics, oh, that was even closer. Okay, that they will be able to develop what I'm talking about with that insulated self-resonant wire. And the other secret is, I think that this is what we're trying now. That's a straight wire. But if you bend that wire and loop it at the end so that you've got, there's the wire going around like this and it goes out here, and then you join one end of it to a spark gap, that the other side of the spark gap is down to ground. What will happen is this is called a bifiller wire, and it's because the current coming from this charged atmospheric thing goes through the wire this way, but then against itself, and the two pieces are close together, the two sides of the wire. When they're close together, it cancels part of the electromagnetic effect and makes it an almost resistance-free circuit, which means it can tank and store huge amounts of energy, high voltage, that you have to step down into capacitors or something, to use it. Now this is in this weather here, I would have it disconnected because where I'm sitting now, a few years back, I had a wire running from our ambient weather station out the back, and it was running down around outside that window and down into through a hole here in the window and down into the plug here, where I had the power to some of our equipment plugged in, and I had this linked into our computer feed here, and lightning struck the weather station outside, went down that wire, exploded the wire, shot copper BBs, melted copper BBs through my window here, blew up the power pack here like a grenade, and wiped out half of our computers. So we're reasonably, cautious about thunderstorms down here now, because we're up a little bit higher here than most everybody else, and so we catch all the hot ones.
Wow.
We don't want that to happen here. There's too much stuff that could catch fire.
Well, yeah, no, holy cow.
And Stan, I got to ask you, so much we see about free energy being suppressed. Will we ever?
Yeah.
I mean, I know things are collapsing around us so fast that we might not, make it to tomorrow. But saying we do get out of this mess somehow, will we ever see a time, when our government will give us the technology that they have to a free energy, to a cheaper energy, or will this just stay suppressed until the end times?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm no longer privy to what they're doing with it, but I do recall earlier that years ago when I was still in contact with some of the guys, that the reasoning was to hold back the free energy devices that we do have. The first free energy device that I know of was made by this Dr. T. Henry Murray, and he couldn't get the government to give him a patent, even though he took a working model to the patent office and proved it. But that was in the late 30s and early 40s. In that, just a few years after that, like within 10 years, Ayn Rand wrote Atlas Shrugged. Now, Ayn Rand, that's A-Y-N-R-A-N-D. Ayn Rand was very, very bright, intelligent woman, and she was the mistress of Lord Rothschild, one of the Illuminists. And I'm sure that she saw the energy device working, and he may have had his guys figure out how Maury was doing it because it was in a box with an antenna. And in the John Galt story, the Atlas Shrugged story, the hero goes off into the mountains and builds communities using this free energy box with an aerial on it in the Colorado mountains, believe it or not. And this was of that type of energy, and the reason that I think that we're not seeing this released to the earth is because you can't police it. You can't charge it or tax it unless you put a device on it that you can monitor and pick up by remote sensing and stuff like that. The other reason is that the group, the Illuminists, were holding this back while consuming prodigious amounts of oil from the Middle East and the oil exporting countries. They wanted to win a war that has been going on since probably 300 A.D. It was the war of the Crusades that came later between Islam and Christianity and Judaism. They wanted our Illuminists wanted to consume all their oil, so they had nothing left to sell but sand, while we held the free energy devices in secret under our control, so that at some future date and we have oil supplies that are tapped off in Canada, Australia, the North Sea, and all over. We've got tons of oil. But the idea was to burn up the oil of the enemy, buy it, pay prodigious prices for it, and then even have a war in Iraq where you burn some of the oil. You see what I'm saying? To get rid of it, to get rid of the infrastructure they had so they couldn't be a threatening arm because they couldn't afford it. However, the Arabs in the 80s figured out what was going on and started, putting their money in secret into various U.S. and European companies on the share markets so that they could divest themselves into other areas to produce income. It's still the Crusades being fought between the Western, Christian Jewish nations as a conglomerate against the Arab Islamic nations. That's why they were holding it back. Now, when you have a one-world government, there is a way that they can tax your use of these free energy devices. And that was the big stumbling block when Nikola Tesla wanted to do the same thing. And Dr. Murray used Tesla's ideas, which he tried to file in a patent, to generate his own device. Again, a wire, a plate in the air, and a discharge circuit. I mean, very simple, but there are factors to control on it. So that's why we're not seeing it now. It's being held back until the world government can control it. Our problem is China and the Asian nations. China is now, the elephant in the room. The sleeping giant is awakened. And they, like the Bible said with the kings of the East, will eventually move in toward the end of the tribulation period into the Middle East oil fields to try to control them and take them. Using the technique, that Genghis Khan and Sun Tzu developed for the arts of war, they know, the Chinese, that if they let the Western nations and the Arab nations beat the crud out of each other until they're just absolutely exhausted and resources are just depleted, like it happened in World War II. The Chinese know they can then just take their trains, which they built tracks all the way to their western borders, move troops by the millions in by train into the Middle East, and just pick up the pieces and mop up our guys. That's the Armageddon War we're talking about, which won't be very long because the good Lord comes back and put a stop to it. But they are the fly in the ointment. They are the outrider that will not let this New World government be stable. Well, whether it could be stable with other things is another issue. But
we always hear talk about the blue beam rapture and the possibilities. I know William Cooper was one who talked about that a lot. Could we see a time where we have a fake alien landing being done by this New World Order system with the advanced technology that they've hidden from humans to as a way to deceive us, a way to bring about the Antichrist or the Great Deception?
Well, yes, but why would you limit it to human beings doing it? If Satan has already got his people here on the earth, and he's got the technology and the infrastructure that we built for him, and they took away in the late 70s, why wouldn't it just be him making the landing of the messengers of light, love, and harmony, to save us from those little nasty gray critters? I think that's what's going to happen for sure. Originally, our guys planned to do that before they knew that these androids, these gray critters, were here. After World War II was ending, the Illuminists in Russia and Canada and Norway and Australia, they got together, and some other countries. The leaders of the scientific and industrial and economic communities got together, and they said, look, we can't afford the next war. It will wipe out too much of the planet. It will kill us all. Nuclear winters and that kind of stuff, we must stop that. And so they knew that they couldn't do it by a United Nations type thing. They knew the League of Nations had failed. You can't get any 5 of the 196 nations to agree to turn over their sovereignty to each other in one group. So there had to be an alternative 3. An alternative 3 at that time in the early 50s was let's make secret advanced technologies as we discover them. Not release them to the world, but develop them in our underground bases until we have enough to fool the people into thinking that a superior race from space has come and it has the power to either wipe us out or help us come into the new age of a one-world government. And at that time, we'll frighten by the sheer presence of the technology in these ships all over, will frighten the people into accepting the New World Order long enough to make it work. And that was the plan until Satan's guys became numerous and kicked us out of our own bases, and they're going to do the fooling, the deception.
And we see how easy it is for people to be deceived by simple things like the mainstream media and politicians. Wait till they bring out the big guns. You can just imagine the amount of people that will fall for this deception.
I have marveled at times over the years after I left the organization, debating with physicists, gravitational physicists, propulsion physicists. When I tell them how electrogravitics or anti-gravity work and how you can support a large mass aircraft in situ in the air or in orbit for long periods of time without expending the prodigious amounts of energy that we do in the chemical propulsion rockets, they laugh, they get mad, they dismiss me. And I've often just snickered to myself because I'm knowing when the day comes that they see these big things that are a mile in diameter parked over a city, they're going to say, that's impossible. And it just, I'd know about it if that must be that's not from around here. And, and I tried to explain to them. One guy even threw chalk at me across his desk when I was using his blackboard to explain. I said, okay, so we can't take a large aircraft and hover over an airfield for like 10 minutes in situ without, moving the airframe. It would take too much energy. That's right. It can't do it. I said, so a hot air balloon or a dirigible doesn't work. Is that right? He threw the chalk. It's not the same thing, but it's specific gravity. But I was saying to them, look, get the noise out of your head, in your mind. Think out of the box. It is possible you can build a field around a craft that doesn't have skin stretched around it like a dirigible or a hot air balloon, but you can circulate that energy and make everything in it lighter and recirculating so that you're not using thrust. You're using, a contained circulating field that doesn't dissipate very rapidly. No, can't be.
Stan, let me ask you a question. The two things. This is a two-part question. The first part is this. The Phoenix lights back in the 90s, when everyone saw the lights over Phoenix, and folks, if you don't recall that, you can search it on the internet. Just type in Phoenix lights. I don't know, 97, something like that. Was that a military style operation of an advanced aircraft done to see the reaction of people? That's part one. And the second part to this question, which is related, I suppose, is could the airplanes where we see the contrails known as chemtrails, could they be spraying something to change the electromagnetic properties or the electricity or something within the atmosphere that would facilitate a craft or something like the Phoenix lights or some sort of military / intelligence vehicle or whatever, whatever it would be, like a lower space or upper atmospheric type craft. I don't know if I made sense in that, but
you mean like a laser projection field or some sort, or what?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, was a field? Yeah, maybe yes.
Let me address the second part first. Okay. Yes, the particulate spraying is an offshoot of what Dr. Teller patented under a classified patent, using barium and some other metals that were fine particulates to do a couple of things. One, mainly, it was to change the reflectivity of the upper atmosphere to control the changes in our climate. But also, secondly, it would allow clouds to be formed over areas where satellites of other countries might pass and see something we were doing on the ground. So it would form a cloud shield to visual light photography from orbit. Now, of late, Holly and I have noticed when we get rain here, and where we live here in Colorado, that out in the streets and off of our gutters, the rain comes down, and instead of just splashing like clean rain normally does, it formed a foam on the rain, on the puddles in the streets. This foaming material, I think, is what part of the particulates are that we see sprayed over Colorado every day now. Now that it would be a wasted effort unless we were all alone, humans, and we were going to try to make this fake deceptive landing of aliens by ourselves. But if you accept the premise that the Bible makes, that Satan will come back with his minions posing as a little g God, a Messiah bringing, peace, love, and harmony and light to the earth. If you accept that is already in progress, then we go back to the Phoenix lights. That was about a mile across. Now, whether it was a real craft, some people argue that it was a stream of flares that were linked together and moving like this, but subsequent reports in daylight of a guy down in Texas who drew the pictures of what he saw, this huge, hundreds of meters wide craft going overhead, and he drew the bottom of it showing little divots in the bottom and discrete square sections underneath it. It looked like a flat golf ball surface, where it had divots in it, or pits.
Right.
Now, that wasn't flares. That was a real craft. And what impressed me about his drawing was this. You can make a Trojan horse out of very lightweight material and build a craft that's, a mile across. You can't lift it up off the ground unless you uniformly lift up all members of it at once and move them together, uniform acceleration. That's why our engineers look at it and say, oh, you're not going to make a 200-meter beam of steel that won't bend under its own weight, much less accelerate like the things that we see. I mean, that's just impossible. So that will convince them, the sheer size of a craft. But if you take a 30-foot diameter craft that can, support maybe
90 seconds,
30 tons of weight, and you put one of these in each of those divots in a big craft, and then put a skin over it that could be hollow. You don't know what's inside of it. Yeah. And then you link all those fields of those little crafts together, and whoosh, whoosh, you do magical things because you're uniformly accelerating. It's not going to suffer the G-forces and stresses on the spars. It's not going to bend them. But it will impress even the best engineers we've turned out.
Wow, fascinating. Stan, we are in the last
60 seconds.
We want to thank you so much for joining us
man.
tonight. I hope we can make this a more regular happening, or you coming on our show.
Yeah,
because it's been a while since the last time, and it's so fascinating, and learned so much listening to you, and I know our audience really enjoys it as well.
It's certainly great to be able to use my hands to illustrate points.
Folks, man, it's a fantastic thing. The video is so fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, and starting next week, we're doing 3-hour shows from here on out. So
yeah, man.
But we hope we can get back, have you back on the show again sometime soon. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Stan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Do appreciate it. We'll talk to you again.
All right. Folks, that's standeo.com, standeyo.com.
10 seconds.
Grab his book, The Cosmic Conspiracy.
Yeah, right on, man.
Grab Holly Dale's book, Dare to Prepare, the must-have of preparedness books. Folks, I want to thank you all for joining us. Do not miss tomorrow's show. Who will
Pastor
be our guest?
David Langford tomorrow.
David Langford will be our guest tomorrow.
And Saturday we might have Keith Hansen here in studio. Or
Friday we'll have Keith Hansen in studio. Monday we're going to have
Philip Hoag.
And Wednesday we're going to have the director, writer, and then also the leading actor of the movie Gray State on. Right. So it's you're not going to want to miss the rest of this week or next. God bless you all. We will see you here tomorrow. Have a great night.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Did I just cut off? Stan, you there?